There's a quote by the Buddha: "The problem is we think we have time." This has been a rough 2 weeks for me, and I'm not sure where we're going from here. My freshman and sophomore year of high school, I went to a very small rural high school. There were about, I think if I remember correctly, there were 56 students from 9th to 12th grade, freshmen to seniors, a total of 56 students. And I didn't have all that good parenting, and so I spent a lot of time over at one of my best friend's house. And he and I spent a lot of time together those 2 years I was there. And we'd go out into the desert. He had a Honda 50. We'd go riding out into the desert. We were both on the JV basketball team. We were both on the varsity baseball team. So there was a lot of time after school that we spent together. Between my sophomore and junior year, my family decided to move to Milwaukie, Oregon, which is a suburb of Portland. And so about the last thing I did before we moved from where I was over the Cascades, about 140 miles to Milwaukie, was I went to say goodbye to my good friend. He was Denny Van Orso. When I got to my first day of high school, my junior year at Milwaukie High School, it was, as you might imagine, a much, much bigger school. There were hundreds of students. And I can remember going into the building. It was an old 2-story, huge building, and I was kind of lost. And I went to the office and got my schedule and started to look around to find it. And while I was lost looking around, this girl came up, another student, and she said, "You look lost." And I said, "Yeah, I am. I don't know where to go." And she says, "What's your name?" And I said, "Ted." And she goes, "Hi, I'm Debbie Van Orso." So the last person I saw when I left Culver was Denny Van Orso, and the first person I saw at my high school in Milwaukie was Debbie Van Orso, and I knew the universe was talking to me. And Debbie kind of adopted me. She showed me where to go, invited me to have lunch with her and her friends, and we became lunch buddies for the next 2 years. And then we both graduated in 1967, went our separate ways. 45 years later, we reconnected, and we had had a lot of life, as you imagine, during those 45 years. And we became very close, very good friends. It's not unusual when two guys become best buddies and, they're bros or homies or whatever. And it's not unusual for two women to become best friends, girlfriends, BFFs, whatever. But it's fairly unusual, much less usual, that two people of opposite genders, a man and a woman, become best friends. And Debbie and I became best friends. And she passed away two weeks ago. We had a very deep, loving relationship. It was platonic, and we appreciated each other a lot. We gave each other a lot of loving kindness, universal compassion, and sympathetic joy. We went all over the world together. We had been to France multiple times, Ireland. Just this past September, we returned to France for 10 days and then went off and spent 10 days in Italy. Most of the vlogs that you've seen posted on this channel, she's there. She's either right beside me, or she's holding the camera while I talk to it, or she's pointing out things I may be missing that I might want in the video. Also, she lives on the other side of the Cascades, so she could tell me all the things that were going on over there, and the two of us could decide what we were going to film for this channel. That morning, her last morning, I was at her house. Now, when I wasn't at her house, we talked multiple times every day, usually texting back and forth all day long. And she was almost always there when I was filming. Of the talking head videos like this, she probably was holding the camera 90% of those times. But that morning, I took a cup of coffee up to her. She liked to lay in bed, sit in bed, and go through her emails and texts and all of that. And so I made a cup of coffee for her, as I usually did, and took it upstairs to her. And I went back downstairs and I got involved in something on the laptop. Eventually she got dressed, she came down, she'd agreed to feed the cats of the next door neighbor. And she came up to me and said, "I'm going to go feed the cats." She kissed me on the forehead, said, "I love you," walked out the door, and that was the last time anybody ever saw her. After about a half an hour or so, I figured out something was wrong and tried to get into the next door neighbor's house, but the door was locked. I pounded on the door, I rang the doorbell multiple times, no answer. I finally had to call 911. They eventually got in and found her, and she was no longer with us. And it's been a rough 2 weeks. We were the same, actually. We were the same age mostly. She was a few months older than I was, and so if I make it to this September, I'm going to go very deep. I have a plan to go very deep in my life, and you'll learn much more about my situation and Debbie and all of that. But if you go back through, you'll catch glimpses of her in this channel. She didn't necessarily like to be on the video, but it's going to be hard. I had planned a couple of 3 months ago to go down to the Bay Area and see my son Toby. He's a department manager down there, and between the time Debbie passed and the time of her services a couple of days ago, I had to get out of here. I had to do something. I was overcome with grief. Grief was just really causing me a lot of sorrow, as you might imagine. So I went down there, and Toby and I actually filmed some things, and you'll be seeing those over the next couple of weeks. But I noticed, looking at the film, that I'm not the same, and you can imagine that I'm not. Debbie was there for these vlogs, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to go on without her. I think I will. I want to. She would want me to. So I'm going to try it and see how it goes. But I feel a responsibility to you because you guys have given me so much support, and I appreciate that. She and I were in a I don't know, a group of folks across the U.S. that are fans of a particular band, and um, they're an Americana band, the Band of Heathens, and the heathen community really rallied around me, and I have to thank them for that. The Debbie had a side thing. She really liked the Portland Leather Group. It's a Portland Leather Company makes purses and passbooks and leather for females, and she had become ensconced in the PLG, Portland Leather Group ladies, and they've been very supportive of me. Debbie was like their mother, and some of them are really heartbroken that she's gone, as you might imagine. I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue, but I'm going to try. Um, we split the costs of everything, and that's no longer here. But I'm going to try to go on, and I hope you'll stay here. Bear with these next two vlogs that don't necessarily seem like the ones before it, but I want us to continue for me, for her, and for you, and we'll see if we can do it. And if I actually make it to this fall, you'll be hearing a lot about that relationship and where and me. Thank you for sticking here for this, and come back next week. Actually, come back this in a few days. I'll have the first of the vlogs that I shot with my son Toby. Thank you.